Chapter 35. The Arrival. I sat at the shoreline and scooped up a handful of sand, letting it sift through my fingers. The grains were as black as jet beads. Overhead, the sky showed off that golden beauty she reserves for after her worst storms. To the southeast, the Prosperity was now just a dot on the horizon, headed toward the discovery of a lifetime. Beau stood shin-deep in the water, watching the ship fade to nothing. I had just finished recounting everything the captain, his mother, had told me. I had described the portrait and shared all of Sangra's stories about Rian. The only thing I held back were the details of Sangra and Rian's fight during the storm. I still couldn't be sure what I had witnessed. The ship had been rocking so violently. Anyone could have fallen overboard. I nearly did myself. As much as my image of Rian had been stained, I wouldn't let myself believe that she had pushed her own sister over the side. Beau hadn't spoken a word the whole time he listened, and now he stood in silence, rubbing the shell necklace between his fingers. I got up and brushed the sand off my legs. "Beau?" The cold water surged over my ankles as I walked out toward him. "Hey, come on. You're going to freeze standing out there so long." He stood as still as a boy carved from stone, which made him look even more like Captain Sangra. I shivered as I waded out to him. The wind had died and the air was warm, but the seawater was icy cold, a reminder of how close we were to the southern pole. No one, not even someone as strong as Anjali Sangra, could live for long in water like this. "Hey, will you come back now?" I asked him. "Please?" Beau finally turned his face to mine. His eyes were red, but there were no tears on his cheeks. When he saw me, the corner of his mouth lifted and that one dimple appeared. He swallowed, and it vanished again. "She was coming to look for me," he said quietly. I nodded. She was. I realized then why Beau had wanted to go to Mankan so badly. He was planning to look for his mother, too. I tried to think of what to say. What was there to say to someone who got so close to the thing they'd always wanted, then lost it for a second time? I started to put my hand on his shoulder, but he grabbed my arm first. "Hey, look at that!" He shaded his eyes with one hand and pointed to a dark object floating 50 yards offshore. "I think it's one of the rowboats." "We could shelter under that," I said. "We've just got to wait till it washes ashore." "It could dash against the rocks and sink first," said Beau. "I'll go get it and bring it in." "No, don't! Beau, wait!" He dived into the surf before I could grab him. I ran after him, but had to stop when the water reached my waist. I had told Beau about the shimmering scales I'd seen during the storm, but he hadn't believed me. Even I had to admit that the words sounded absurd coming out of my mouth, like something Dumpling would say. I watched in terror, then in awe, as he swam out, his arms rising up over the water with each stroke. I already knew Beau was a good swimmer from our escape from the Prosperity. He'd kicked us the entire way to the island while I clung to the crate, useless and petrified. Just when I felt sure he would never make it, he finally reached the rowboat. By the time Beau had tugged the boat back to me, my legs ached from standing in the cold water. I grabbed one side and helped him haul the boat onto the sand. We dragged it up the beach all the way to the black rocks in the center of the island. "Let's turn it over," I said. "It's banged up, but it'll make a good shelter." "It's a fooning mansion," said Beau between chattering teeth. I grabbed my wool cloak from where I had laid it on the rocks to dry and put it around his shoulders. "You sit down and warm up. I'll fix us up for the night." With the sun going down, I scoured the beach, scooping up armfuls of fluffy dried seaweed. I piled it all around the rowboat and packed sand on top. Back in the fens, Mud and I had gone through rough months where we didn't have a roof over our heads. He taught me how to make a shelter out of a crate and pack it all around with paper and trash to hold the heat in. "Most people think of food first," I remember him telling me. "But you can go weeks on an empty belly. You can't go even one night out in the cold." When darkness finally descended and the stars came out, I'd managed to get the rowboat completely covered. Beau and I wriggled inside, then packed the entrance tunnel with sand. The boat kept the breeze off us, and soon the heat from our bodies warmed up the space. There, that's not so bad, is it? Cozy as a coffin. I made myself laugh, though we both knew it was too true to be funny. Even though he was wrapped in my wool cloak, I could hear Beau's teeth chattering. Here, lean against me. I scooted beside him and held my arm up, and he huddled close to me. Go on, try to sleep. I'll take the first watch. I quickly realized how stupid that sounded. Watch for what? We were alone in the middle of the ocean, and not a soul on earth was coming to look for us.